afternoon. Nice to see you all here in Käinas, Hiiumaa, Daage. And maybe to someone it might be why we are here. Of course, there is a very specific reason, because 47 years ago, all these underwater activities started here in Hiiumaa. Not actually in Käinas, but in Kõrgessaare, in Nekmangrund, Hiiumaal, and around this area. And maybe, as I was promised to give just 15 minutes, I hope to manage. And of course, it's not a scientific approach, and you will listen to things later on. Maybe my speech is little bit somehow nostalgic memories also, a little bit, because I was not here in 47 years ago, but 45 years ago I was. Something like this. It's a very, very beginning, and somebody, of course, knows this photo, and it's from our collection, and it is taken after the first expedition in Hiiumaa, in this Nekmangrund, and in the middle there is Peremees captain, who was a leader later on all these expeditions, and in first years to us it was very important person was archaeologist Vello Lukas, just here. Kas see pointer töötab ka või?
Seal on lase kohe laua peal.
Very good. Okay, and it was a really very beginning, and as in every beginning is somehow romantic also, because it's what to do, what to find, and it's not scientific at all, and it shouldn't be in that way, because you must engage people, you must engage in a new activities, new fields, and it was in the first days and first years in that way. And of course, in the left is Bruno Pau, great guy. He just passed away this year in 92 years old, and he was behind of the many expeditions. He was leader of Maritime History Department in Maritime Museum, and he was my first chef also. And in the right side is our first ship, what was borrowed from the Kirov collective farm. It was designed for divers and diver rescue, and rather good vessel. And but of course, I can't say that every museum, but if you have something, in that case, sooner or later you need your own ship, and our own ship was Mare. Now we have a lot, and maybe in the future we will have something else. Okay, and let me back, maybe. This is again. This, of course, as you see, so first, it was a second expedition. We had that kind of sign, also a little bit romantic. And of course, in the first years, it was our goal was to find Viking ship. Later on, of course, it was quite obvious you can't find it maybe in so easily. And the truth is that the real Viking ships or the pre-Viking ships just were found many, many years later. But of course, everything, if you go out the first thing it was find a Viking ship and maybe something more interesting. And true was at that, and in 79 and 80s, we got a lot of publicity, really a lot of publicity, because it was interesting. It was something different, and I guess that we used this publicity also quite well. That Maritime Museum became quite well known, and it was thanks to these activities in every summer camps in different places, and of course first movies what was done. To this we had very good guy. It's from Estonian TV, Deserta. Thanks to his contacts, it was quite easy to make first documentaries about this Hiiumaal, Nekmangrund. And this cannon. The cannon, it looks very lousy anyway, and it was placed in this Kassari museum in front of it. And I remember one night with one of the club Viikar member, Endel Grensman. He's now away somewhere there, and he was a great photographer, but his idea was that the best picture of the cannon, we can do it only in the moonlight, not in the sunshine, only in the moonlight. And we took a car and traveled to this Kassari museum in front of it and tried to do a good photo. I really can't remember, was it really good or not, but the main idea was, Endel said, we must do it in the night, and the moonlight is the right light to do it. And that's already from the later years. With a Mare, our research vessel, still you can see it in our Seabrand Harbor still, and group of guys. I guess, you can recognize yourself. And Reinald Brifelomes, and in the back it's myself. I can't remember where this photo has been taken, but maybe somebody knows, but I really don't remember it. And in the right, that's our. It's a boat what we used in those days. We never had a rubber boat or this. It was just an ordinary workboat from the fishing trawler, and it was a great help. Sometimes this boat we lost it several times on the sea because the towing rope just broke, and it was quite. When we started, it was still Soviet border guards, and it was a quite great deal of unpleasant things. If you left from a harbor with a ship, and ship had a small boat. If you arrive in a harbor without this small boat, it can be very big trouble. And that was many times it was a main concern. If something happened, don't lose the boat. It's very first pictures. I know that Kaido will tell more about the Maasilinna shipwreck. It's the very first pictures. How this shipwreck. Okay. Kuidas selle proovime? Ei näi. On. Okay. Here is shipwreck. Just down here we had this raft, and the Maasilinna wreck was just connected to the raft, and we towed it from this the finding place to the Illikulite, and here we already have this wreck transported on dry land. No any specific equipment, just we covered it by the plastic quite immediately, And here it is in Saaremaa Hillikulaid. And okay. This frame was done in just there, and no any specific design, just by the view. It should be in that way. It was done in situ, and there is a wreck, and Velomees is just measuring something on the top of this Maasilinna wreck. Yeah, so it was in those days. Very simple. Here again, the same famous cannon in the front of the Hiiumaa museum, and again group photo, and in the left side our deputy scientific director Jaak Sammet, Heino Mari, mechanic, and also Velomees Aavo Jüris, and Vallo Liibrand. The main task to him in the museum was just our bus driver, and our famous bus is somewhere here. This one, and also myself. And Vallo was also a great guy in that sense that he started to dive himself also, and I don't know how good he was, but anyway, he started to dive. And here in the right side, it's again, then it was a little bit more scientific. We went to Koorküla Valgjärv with archaeologist Jüri Selirand, and there is this boat from dugouts from Koorküla Valgjärv, the sunken village. And some years, or quite many years later, when we had a first visit of archaeologists from Sweden, and we had in a program also that we must visit also this Koorküla Valgjärv in southern Estonia. And it was again very hard to have permission. And Velo told me, and some others also, that when we were in this Koorküla Valgjärv camping site, we had a lot of, not a lot of, but some interesting guys around our camping site with a grey suits, and just watching our activities, what we're doing, and on our way to South Estonia and back. We were followed by many cars also, because it's something unusual activity that some guys from Maritime Museum take underwater archaeologists from Sweden to southern Estonia. In those days, it was absolutely, it was not common, not allowed to do it in some. And okay. Something it's a little bit new. It's from 1994. This fog bell from this lightship Ekman-Grund. The same bell just behind Dele's back in the showcase. Exactly the same. I put it specially here because I hope that we are quite close to this bell in our lecture room. It's specially designed in that way. And that's a view how it, Alexander Baumann took this photo first, how it looked through the bottom of the ship hull. And here it is, the ship quite quite recently after arriving to Maritime Museum in our foyer. It's not the same today anymore. And okay, the ship itself, there is also a photo, and the memorial stone in Kõrgessaare. And that's the last. You must start from something. I start from potato peeling on a deck on scientific research vessel Mare. And it was very modest start to me, but anyway, as Admiral Drake once said, that big things can start with the small things, and in our case, it was in the same way, and in my case also, but it's somewhere in the middle of the 80s somewhere, and in the right side. I already hoped that maybe Vallo, first of all, promised to be here also, because to show Vallo also that it was a time when we together peeled the potatoes on a Mare deck. Just as I said, time is over, exactly 15 minutes, and I hope that in today and also tomorrow you will have more serious things and compared to my small photo gallery as I was done today. And I hope that we will listen many new things, as it was said, old things but new perspective, and therefore we are here. And let's see what the next days we will have. Thank you for listening, and good conference at all. Thank you.
Yes, dear friends, welcome to Insula Deserta. Our Urmas very nicely covered the first works and the area around Hiiumaa. We are now actually stepping back onto the land and to tell us a little bit about the archaeological surveys and excavations in Hiiumaa. We have here. You are the best expert on that field, I think. Yes, of course, Dr. Reppo. So.
Yes, thank you.
The island is yours.
Well, one can hope. So yes, my name is Monika Reppo. I went to school in Käinas. So for me, this is quite fun to be here for an international conference. Today, I'm mostly going to focus on things that have been found on land in Hiiumaa. And I'm not an expert on things that have been found in water, so there's only a few mentions of this. And feel free to correct me, because you're the experts on this topic. So you may or may not know, but Hiiumaa is the second largest island in Estonia. It has around 43 islets. Depends on, I guess, what the water is like when it's being measured. But the island was first mentioned in 2028 as insula deserta dicitur Tageida. So essentially an empty island that they call Tageida. And this was in a contract for the Saare bishopric, which was newly founded then. And this island was pledged to the bishop, Gottfried. Other forms of the name are Dagden, Dagö, Dagaiti, and in Swedish most well-known Dagö. In Estonian, or the Estonian name for Hiiumaa was first mentioned allegedly in 1575 as Hiiumaa, and under this name it also appears quite late as well. So a little bit background on the place you're at, and I've kindly marked where we are right now as well, if you don't know exactly. In terms of archaeology in Hiiumaa, There are 44 scheduled monuments on the island. However, obviously there are more sites that have archaeological value on the island. They've just not been registered, and we'll see throughout this presentation why that may be. There are around a dozen shipwrecks registered around the coast. I suppose that depends on how far you extend the coast, what you call the coast, or what is coastal waters or near the coast. And obviously there are more, I assume, than those registered. The surveys have been small scale and very sporadic, as you'll see throughout this presentation. And perhaps interestingly, although metal detecting is a really popular hobby in Estonia right now, there's a very low number of reports on metal detected artifacts from Hiiumaa, although there have been some quite remarkable finds that have been found in the recent years. So hopefully the situation is changing, but yes, it's a bit alarming that there are so few reports coming in from Hiiumaa. And if you're interested in all the sites, you can find them on register.muinas.ee. The start, as in the rest of Estonia, is in the 19th century, when some chance finds are made near Suuremõisa, in the Pühalepa parish. Some belt links with these really common hexagonal belt links have been found. These look a little bit like dice, like they have dots on them, generally 5. And actually, in recent years, we've found more from Pühalepa parish as well during my own digs. And it is possible that this chain link pictured here is the one that was found in 1864, because actually it fell apart. It had several fragments, and the fragments were stored in the Provincial Museum, and then they were transferred onto the Archaeology Museum. So my suspicion is that might be actually part of the chain link from Pühalepa, but I don't know for sure. However, in the late 19th century, the first excavations were carried out, or I don't want to call them excavations, but the first holes were dug in Valipe, which is on the southeastern side of the island. Back then, it was considered to be a medieval hill fort. Now we know that it's a fortified house, mainly used in the 17th century. But the local manor owner wanted to find treasure. And that's how archaeology mostly started in Estonia. Local manor owners had their own little archaeological digs, and this was quite common actually all throughout Europe. These, let's say, landowners exploring their lands a bit further. Most of the finds from the 19th century and early 20th century are still chance finds. And you may notice that Valipe has been dug twice. For some reason, during the First World War, some guys decided that they want to find out what's happening at Valipe as well. So when actual archaeological excavation started in Valipe a few decades, well, half a century later, then the whole site had several holes in it, and nobody really knew who made the first holes and where. So it's a bit of a puzzle, missing pieces when you're studying this site. But not only the manor owners were the first people interested in excavating things. In 1917, in Hiiumaa cemetery, if anybody arrived by plane, then this is where the airport now is, on top of this cemetery. Then a local doctor excavated a skeleton for research purposes. I'm not really sure what they did with the skeleton, but it is known that they did exhume one body. In the 20th century, 1920s, all over Estonia, this systematic surveying started. So the university was interested in finding out and sending actually students on fieldwork trips to collect information on archaeological sites and all sorts of different potential sites that may need to be put under protection. So in Hiiumaa, Erik Laid and Theodor Vaas carried out inspections in 1923, and Erik Laid returned in 1928. So you could say that the first proper excavations were carried out in 1928, and as you can see, a lot of things happened in 1928 in terms of archaeology in Hiiumaa. And these sites that Vaas and Laid studied later have also been restudied, so they are sort of the most studied sites perhaps in Hiiumaa. And surprisingly, the archaeologist also ended up on Hanikatsi, which is an islet off the coast of Hiiumaa. Quite hard to reach today as well. But the results showed that indeed there's some things that require protection on the island, and on some things Erik Laid and Theodor Vaas did not agree upon, and actually quite recently the things that they were arguing over were taken up by the National Heritage Board again to be looked at again, and I don't think it's quite settled yet still. So some arguments may take over 100 years. We'll see. In the 1930s and until the 1960s, actually, there was a break in studies, essentially. Archaeologists didn't really end up on the island. Very few chance finds are reported from this period. And as I'm from Randmaa village, I'm quite pleased to see that there's at least one find that is from my village. And to be fair, the stone axe from Leluselja is also basically Randmaa. So quite chuffed to see this. In 1941, Marta Schmiedehelm did carry out a proper excavation on Pihla cemetery, which is in Kõpu Peninsula. She excavated a stone cist grave that had been disturbed. So you can see in the photo that parts of it have been dug away or in her plan. But for, let's say, 30, 40 years, nothing really happened in terms of archaeology on the island. So quite a lot of stuff may be lost as a result of when the kolkhoz system began. Lots of fields were emptied of unnecessary piles of stones, which may have been stone graves, and so on. There are some reports of human bones being found, but they are very vague, as in like some 20 or 10 years ago we may have found a skull somewhere here or there, so you can't really pinpoint it that precisely. So it's a bit of a, let's say, a dark period in archaeology in Hiiumaa. However, in 1958, the first industrial archaeology project in Estonia, contemporaneous with similar projects in Europe, particularly the UK, was carried out, and the glassworks in Hüti were excavated. So Hüti glassworks were founded in 1628. They operated until 1664. So there is a lot of glass waste, lots of debris, and when you walk on that field today, you kick the dirt a little bit and you already see pieces of glass waste, because glass production industries are really not very eco-conscious, and they leave lots of stuff behind for archaeologists to find. So this site, however, was actually excavated by a glass artist who decided to become an archaeologist and formed his own methodology to study industrial archaeological sites. Did a pretty good job in providing results and even a book in 1966. So this person was Max Roosma, and this site has actually not been excavated after this. So that was one, and I would say also one of the biggest excavations that's been carried out on the island of Hiiumaa. So that's more than half a century ago. And in the 70s, as you may have heard, there was renewed interest in the island. I have not added the maritime archaeology things here because I assumed that they would be mentioned, and they were. So on land, most of the surveying was carried out by Vellologas, all the inspections as well, and mostly in 1972. So you see there's a bit of a pattern here that in the 20s they had this 1 year when they came to the island, did a lot of field work, field walking, spent, let's say, the summer here or a few weeks here, and then left, and like Erik Laid and Theodor Vaas did not return, but Vellologas did come back later as well. However, Vellologas mostly focused on the Reigi parish, well, he ended up finding lots of things in Reigi parish, and so he did dig quite a bit there, but those excavations or studies marked with the asterisk are actually places where he just dug a small hole in the thing just to verify whether it's an object or not. So I don't know if you can actually call it an archaeological excavation. It's mostly like, I made a hole and yes, it's a thing. We should come back later. So yeah. And I do have to say that it was very hard to even find the photo to show you about these excavations or things. This was the only documentation that was in the reports, this lovely little plan. Well, yes. So I would say, although things were published in newsletters and like these proceedings of the Estonian Academy of Sciences, then they generally did not have photos, and also the reports don't really have photos or photos of finds, which is a shame. In 1974, Valipeo was excavated again, this time by Jaan Tamm, and he did a pretty thorough job. I think there were 17 or 18 test pits that he excavated, but again, that report doesn't really have a lot of information that you can backtrack. And also he used the trees growing on the monument to measure the test pits. And obviously when I returned in 2014, the trees had grown much bigger. And some of the trees weren't there anymore either. So it was a bit hard to match his excavation results with my excavations. And I think this is quite maybe like characteristic for the 70s, at least for the excavations in Hiiumaa, that there's lots of new sites are being discovered or being, well, not excavated, like surveyed, but nowadays it's a bit hard to understand what exactly was found and where it was found from. In the 80s, I put one of the one of the ships here as well, because of the lovely collection of finds that's in the Maritime Museum. Because from the 70s I didn't have any photos to show you, at least from here I have some photos to show you. In the 80s the scientific studies picked up, so in the 70s it was more like surveying, finding out what's happening, not making that many notes that would be all helpful later on. But in the 80s, at least Vellologas returned and excavated quite a bit in Reigi parish, quite a lot of Stone Age sites, quite a lot of later stone cyst graves, and also the first iron smelting site was discovered on the island in Kõpu Sepa farm, and quite keen to find out what's gonna be happening there, because it was surveyed last year, and the iron samples are quite promising, indicating perhaps Iron Age iron smelting. So things are picking up, but you may have noticed, if you know that how many parishes there were in Hiiumaa, there are 4. So Pyhalepa, Reigi, Emmaste, and Käina. Reigi has been like showing through here quite a lot. Lots of Reigi, a little bit of Pyhalepa, a few examples from Käina, very few. And then Emmaste is sort of like, nobody knows what's happening here. So this is the case today as well. Even with surveys happening now, there's not much going on in that side of the island, because there are firstly no sites that are sort of under protection, so there's no reason for archaeologists to be called out for that. Only perhaps in Prassi, which is just before Emmaste, when you go from Käina, there have been some surveys happening recently, but yeah, so sort of the same situation throughout the 100 years that we're examining here. In 1981, fairly large-scale excavations happened in Käina. So if you have time tonight, because the excursion of this building ends 30 minutes before our dinner, the dinner place is sort of like diagonally across the church. So you can have a look in the church ruins as well and see what they've done there. And you can see some of the grave slabs and limestone, I wouldn't say monuments, but limestone objects that have been walled in the church, or they are also kept in the chapel by the church, so you can have a sneak peek over there if you have time. In the 1990s, Stone Age was all the rage. Aivar Kriiska was very active in Hiiumaa, as one might say, and especially in 1997. But the study started in 1994, and they are actually ongoing. So he will be returning this year to excavate one of the Stone Age sites again, which is quite exciting. So over the, let's say, past 3 decades, we found out quite a lot about the Stone Age camps, let's say, that were in Kõpu Peninsula. So Kõpu was the area, so that's west of, on the western side of the island, which first rose from the sea. So quite a few interesting objects have been found there. It turns out that Stone Age people in Kõpu really like to eat nuts. There's loads of hazelnut shells, and they seem to have also, for some reason, liked hedgehogs. Not really sure whether they cooked the hedgehogs or what. And obviously seal bones, which is what they were chasing, essentially, why they were in Kõpu. And you may notice that there's really not that much else going on in the 90s. Stone Age is all the rage, and everything else is sort of left aside. And again, you might see that one parish gets preferential treatment. Well, you could say Hainikaitse is like either Käina or Pyhalepa, depending on which side you look from. And Walter Lang then ended up on Hainikaitse, and also was looking at the same field remains that Erik Laid had been looking at in the 1920s, and was able to get quite an early date for some soot found under the like these field stones, like sometime in the late Iron Age. Although nowadays we might get more precise results, so hopefully we will have some renewed interest perhaps in the archaeology of Hiiumaa. One can hope, at least as a person from Hiiumaa. So when in the 90s, in 1997 actually, I went to school, and I had no dream of becoming an archaeologist, and I actually was not planning on becoming one still in the 2000s, but a few photos from the 90s as well. We see what was happening in Kupu. Lots of flint, lots of stone. But in the 2000s and also 2010s, the archaeology slowed down again. So we can say perhaps the economic crisis in 2008 had an impact on things not being developed and archaeologists not being involved. But things only picked up after 2010. You can see there's a little pony nibbling on me when I was digging a hole in Kassari. Most of the surveys have been rather small scale. In Valipe, we returned to study something that had not been studied before because most of the research interest had been on the fortified house. So this is the staircase into the cellar of the fortified house. But we were studying the courtyard in front of the fortified house. So we wanted to see whether there was a cultural layer around the fortified house as well. And indeed there was quite a few finds. Interestingly enough, these bus-glass beakers or octagonal beakers were produced in Hüti at the time, very similar to those ones made in Hüti, and because the site was also used at the same time, so they may have used local suppliers for their glass, which would make sense. Yeah, so I would say that when I was still in school, in the early 2000s, nothing was happening in archaeology. Then I graduated and suddenly, boom, lots of things were happening because, well, Hiiumaa is small. Usually when I came home, I got a call from the National Heritage Board like, hey, are you at home? There's something that needs to be excavated soon. So okay, well, I'll put in a permit application then. Yeah, so in 2014, the surveys were research surveys, so ordered by the National Heritage Board. But later on, and in 2018 as well, another research survey followed in the 2016-15 period. More metal detected finds started popping up, and only in 2013 and 2019, those two studies were like proper rescue archaeology projects, which are generally the type that archaeologists in Estonia are involved in. Still not quite a lot happening, but things changed. So in the 20s, you may have noticed driving to Käinas that lots of new buildings, lots of reconstructed housing, so lots of research projects and so on were happening here. And a few words on stuff we've been doing. Perhaps well, I don't want to say controversial project, but in Pyhalepa, Hiiumaa is the only county that doesn't have a monument for the soldiers who fell in the Estonian Independence War, the War of Independence in the early 20th century. So the goal is to put one up in front of the Pyhalepa church, which means there's lots of excavations going on there. In Käinas church, we installed some lighting so you can go and look at the church in the dark. Yeah, so quite a few things like that. In 2023, the local Heritage Society invited us to study a chapel in Kärdla, where Randmaa is today, near that spot, the beach park in Kärdla. And perhaps most excitingly for this crowd, I was able to identify quite recently, actually this one has a thing as well, that the bell, one of the bells in the chapel was from a shipwreck, and the owner had bought it from an auction, the later owner of this chapel. The chapel belonged to the coastal Swedes, who left somewhere around 1810, and after that, sort of the local oral history kind of disappeared surrounding the chapel, and we weren't able to find the chapel, most likely because all of the building material was used in the other chapel in Kärdla. But we were able to find a few human remains in the area, and hopefully studies will continue soon. And the only artifact associated with the graveyard is this denga. So not quite a lot. And then finally, and this spoon brings us to the modern day, because in the 40s, the beach had some defense points, and some soldiers and prisoners of war apparently ended up on the beach. Again, a project still ongoing. And finally, the Sarve hoard that you may have heard of, in 1254, port is mentioned in Sarve, and it's a supposedly now we assume that it's a late Iron Age harbor site, because in 2024 a metal detector is discovered bones, not bones, coins, a mount, a brooch, and a needle from this site. And actually, before the Heritage Board was able to carry out studies, he found another small hoard 400 meters from the first site. So we can assume that although this site was first mentioned in 1254, it was probably already known before this, and hopefully it will be studied further in the future. And finally, some nice cones for you as well. Not very nice looking, because they've been bruised and battered by the ice in the beach. 18 coins in total, only one from Hungary, modern day Hungary, and all the other ones are from the Holy Roman Empire. And there's one rare coin as well, the first of its kind from Estonia. And now your program will start. I put some shipwrecks on here. I would say that some of them perhaps are not by the coast, but they're sort of around Hiiumaa, so you can sort of call them Hiiumaa shipwrecks. And hopefully we'll hear about at least some of these in some future presentations. Yeah, that was me.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions? Comments? Oh, perfect.
Yeah?
You were talking about excavations, but what about the accidentally finds? Do we have those kind of finds from Soviet time, or from the 90s or early 2000s, when nothing was happening?
Well, in terms of chance finds, this is an ongoing project of trying to locate all of the archaeology that's been done in Hiiumaa, and all the chance finds as well. If there were none in this table, as you may have noticed, in the night. Oh, I have to go back. So only this singular tooth that actually Ivar Griska also found. No. The answer is no. Unfortunately, no. Not sure why, but probably because Hiiumaa was kind of isolated at the time anyway, and archaeologists didn't really end up here. There were not really archaeologists from the island as well, so nowadays we have a few.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah.
Why do the island was called Insula deserta. What was the reason?
Good question. I think because the people who were writing the pledge or the contract up, they just hadn't been there maybe, or because it was so economically unimportant for them that there were not a lot of people paying taxes, or wouldn't have been a lot of people paying taxes for them, that they didn't really mention. But looking at archaeology, it's definitely not empty. It's like there's people living here, and I think it's more economic and political sense that it was empty.
Thank you. Yes, as a small token of our gratitude, healthy beverage. Enjoy.
Thank you.
And now, when we untangle Monika from the microphone, yes, perfect. I would like to give the floor to Liisa, our colleague, still, I would assume, hope, and maritime archaeologist, although currently full-time mother, but maritime archaeologist nonetheless. And she has studied the history of maritime archaeology in Estonia, working through documents and logbooks and photographical materials. So about maritime archaeology and its beginning at the Maritime Museum.
It's true. So, here I am. It's 6 years ago, or so. I don't know, Brit found the photo for me. But at the time I was really working in the Estonian Maritime Museum as a researcher. And one of my first tasks as a researcher was to sit in a tiny office in the Fat Margaret Tower. And it was just before the museum was packing all the things up to renovate the tower and open a new museum in a few years. And I was sitting there with Peremees, who Urmas also mentioned, and his vast collection of everything related to maritime archaeology in Estonian Maritime Museum. And my first task was, so please try to make sense what's here, and please take them into the museum collections to preserve. So the small task. And I expected Velle to say, well, take this, don't take this. But instead, he was there and he said, look, here's the shelf. Here is the old computer. Take what you want. And sometimes he would go into long memories down the memory lane and talk about the time a little bit as well, which I'm not touching today because Urmas is here. Here's also Kaido, who will be talking next a little bit about their memories, and there are some other people who actually remember the beginning. I am much too young for that. So that was what I was doing, and that's the basis, because I read then later on all those logbooks and the written material, and also looked at the photos. And then what I'm talking about today is what I think I learned from that, or how the big picture looks for me. Obviously, I can't go into the full period from 1978 to today, because that would be a really long presentation. So it's going to be about 10 years or so from the beginning. Today I'm not working in the museum. I'm instead a part of a family of Batmans. But the Maritime Museum is there as the capes those little silk things from the Maritime Museum, they make excellent capes. Anyways, this is the description that was written in a paper, a newspaper, just after the first expedition. And as Urmas also said, it does look pretty romantic, right? So they had a campsite. Well, this is kind of a scary little emoji, because they had also 4.5 days of unforeseen formalities that came with the Soviet system. Vello's book chapter is filled with all kind of acronyms of all kind of institutions they had to have permissions from, and then the border guards still said, well, I don't care what Moscow said. We are here and we say you can't go to the sea. So 4.5 days of that, and then they had a little campfire every night, and this is how it generally looked like. It wasn't the first year, but yes, that's from a later year, but that's how it looked like. So that's the romantic part, but then they also had already in the first year precise plan what to do. It stems a little bit from those all those permissions that they had to get. They had to be really precise to say that we want to go there, because otherwise they wouldn't have had the permission. But they had the plan what to do. They had a ship that took them to the sea. And they also had a scientific supervisor, which is not always so in every country. I mean, usually maritime archaeology just starts in a way that, oh, I want to see what's there, and it doesn't really matter who I am. If I have the means to go underwater and I'm interested, I'll go. But this time, Vello Lougas, who was mentioned before, was there already in the first time. He didn't dive. That's the difference here. So the beginning was in 1978, but something has to come before. And firstly, there needs to be an interest. And Vello, who is here again, said that he was really touched by The Silent World, the movie by Cousteau. And then also some of the books had been already translated into Estonian. So there was a general public who knew about the possibility that you could go underwater and you could find shipwrecks, what else is there. And there were also some dive clubs, and there were also some people who worked as divers. So there was an interested group of people already there. And there was a little bit archaeology done as well, or at least the people had always been interested in wrecks that came up. And already in 1934, from Tallinn Harbor, there's a picture that there was a shipwreck. But also people were more interested in, is there anything we can salvage? So can we take anything from there? That was the main interest in 1920s, 1930s. But there's also a little research paper there. It's written by Jüri Selirand, and he went to Koorküla Valgjärv, which Urmas also mentioned, and made a pretty decent archaeological excavation there, but it was not in the sea, it was in the lake, and also the archaeologist didn't dive. which is something that later changed in the Estonian Maritime Museum. So by the 1978, the museum was ready to go to the sea. They had all the papers, all the permissions, and they also had a plan. The plan was, let's see what's there. Let's go and find a wreck. And they decided that Hiiumaal, a red spot there, would be a nice spot, because when you have shoals, then you would expect that some ships end their routes there and wreck. Their methods were diving at random spots to find something, and they also had an echo sounder, but what I read, that they didn't use it as much, or they didn't have as much value from it as they would have hoped. And also, they didn't find much from Hiiumaal as well, because they didn't expect, or they didn't know that the storms would have impact in that deep on the shoal, so that the wrecks wouldn't be as intact as they would have hoped. So to get some results, they would go to Pechenga, which is the dot out there, because they knew there should be a wreck. So they had some results from there. And also some locals said that here in Kõrgessaare harbor, where they had their camp, there should be a little wreck there, so go and investigate that. So they did, and then they could write this little thing for the newspaper that, hey, we had results. And also the newspapers and talking to the public, it was always very important to them. And I think it's a really nice thing that we had it from the beginning, that we want everybody to know about what's around our waters, because as Urmas said, it wasn't easy to get to the seas. The islands were locked for people who weren't local, and nobody wouldn't even dream about diving in those waters before that as well. The discipline, the maritime archaeology, it always evolves through methods, and these were the methods that were used in 6 years or so from the beginning. To cover the area, they used echo sounder. They also used aqua glider, just to make it easier for the divers, so they wouldn't get so tired. Then trawling with a metal pole, that's a favorite. And diving at random spots, lifting artifacts. Priit will later tomorrow talk about how Estonian Maritime Museum collections formed. And in the beginning, there were just many artifacts just brought up because it was, easier to look at them as well. And also, it was a bit of a pride, or it was a result that people could look at, and they would know that we did something down there as well. They were talking to all kind of people, locals, to get knowledge about shipwrecks, any other maritime finds. And also it was important to show what they had found to the public. Always important. In the first years they had 2 milestones that made maritime archaeology as a discipline even more important. It was easier to get to the sea with their own research vessel, Mare. That's a later picture because I wanted to bring some color to the presentation as well. And they also made underwater archaeology club Viikar. My understanding from the Soviet era is that there were a lot of clubs. So if you wanted to do something, you had to have a club, and then people gathered to the club, and then you got the permissions and you could do something. So this is underwater archaeology focused club. And Kaido, who is here, will give us later some memories about the work, how it was done in Viikar. And then the club and the museum and the amateurs who were really interested in maritime archaeology had already worked a little bit, some years. And they had used all the methods that were shown before. But then the first underwater excavations came. This is my understanding, that in 1985, when they went to Saaremaa Maasilin and found a shipwreck there, they made quite thorough excavations, and the ship now has ended up in the seaplane harbor. So if you have time, you can go there as well. But they also evolved in the sense that they wanted to have young people there as well. So, you would always have people who are willing to dive later on as well. So there was, I think, quite short-lived, but a lively period of Jauhskrab Pringel. And also amateur movie club Viikar Film, because there were several people who were good with the camera, and that was actually their main work that they did. So we have quite a good coverage in photos, in videos from the very beginning of the maritime archaeology, and I think that's a plus because not every country has that, I guess. And inspired by the books that they have read about the other countries, now we had our own booklet searching for sunken ship. So the museum and the club had experience enough that you could write about it already in 9 years or so. Yes, and this is Maasilin wreck. It was discovered in '85, and it was 3 years of campaigns there, excavations, and as you can see, it's not all that Vella is measuring something, as Urmas said in his presentation, but they actually had some labels already there. There were measuring tools underwater, and they also had to figure out how to take it out and why to take it out. There were 2 reasons. First 2 years they excavated it underwater, and then by that time the location was quite disturbed already, so something had to be done. But there was another, also rather romantic idea, because the people, and Vellamäe in particular, he knew about the Vasa, he knew about the Mary Rose, he knew about Viking ships in Denmark, and he, I guess, really wished we would have something of our own. And the Maasilin wreck was an ideal candidate, because at that time it was the first Estonian origin find, and it had some quite extraordinary features for that time as well. So it came like a national pride to have our own wreck. And that's also why they pushed bringing it up. And I think they had quite a good knowledge of what happened in the West, although it was still a Soviet period here, because the excavation or lifting methods were quite similar to to what had been done in Vaasa. And also the conservation process was also quite similar to Vaasa. So, what I think is characteristic for an evolving research discipline is that you have to have a group of amateurs who have to become professionals at that time, at some time. And you would need to have organized structure. You would need to think about your methods and always try to become better. You would need to learn yourself. You would need to teach those that come to work with you. And you would have a certain amount of young people that are very interested in the topic, because otherwise in 20 years, what would you do? You should publish your results. And here, we can't say that we had much or anything written in scientific journals, but we have a lot of popular science writings from that period. And if you read them carefully, then you can actually get quite a reliable picture of what happened. Foreign contexts, exchanging best practices, as we saw with Maasilin, they were quite up to date. And defining itself, which is something that in that period didn't really happen in Maritime Museum, because everybody just called it underwater archaeology, and that was that. We have had discussions later, and now we have moved to maritime archaeology, but then it was quite certainly underwater archaeology. And what I want to say is, although we had the Soviet period that made it really difficult to go to the sea, we didn't have much contact with the West, but then all those things, or most of the things, they were present from the beginning, or in 10 years, I would say we already had the fully functioning discipline of maritime archaeology. So to me, I feel it happened quite fast. And I think if you think about your own countries, you recognize these things as well. Maybe your timing was earlier, maybe it was later, but it all happened at some point. A few words about what happened later. As we had quite defined discipline already, it was only logical that the Department of Underwater Archaeology was formed in the Estonian Maritime Museum, which is really nice, but then the society changed, and we started to move towards independence. That meant that the borders at one time opened up. There was change in economic discipline as well. So it was, you didn't actually need Maritime Museum, you didn't need Viikar, you didn't need that kind of organized structure that you had a need for before to get to the sea. So people started to have their own companies, chose another dive club, maybe dove alone. And what I want to say, everything kind of dwindled from 1987 or 1990s and later. And although we had our first, and I think still only, article in IGNA in 1991. Huh? Not only anymore. Good, I am behind. Thank God. But by that time, it was already on the way that the ship Mare and a mechanic were searching for wrecks with a side-scan sonar on sea quite alone. Although they had many projects with others, they had geologists, they had private companies, they were looking for the opportunities to dive, to do something bigger. But it's just that the times had changed by the early 90s. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? Comments?
Yes, go for it.
About underwater clubs. And so Viikar was not the only one, because it was some kind of boom of underwater clubs in 1980s. And for instance, in Saaremaa was a club which name was Süvala. In Viljandi, in the middle of Estonia, was underwater archaeology club, also it's called Triton. And in Narva was an underwater archaeology club, what's name was Homo Aquaticus. Very, very proud, very proud. We met once those guys in Suursaare and also in Tütarsaare, but Homo Aquaticus and sorry, and it was quite important because we had the connections, we had. And when the small piece of a cork was found in Pärnu, there was also Viikar and there was also Süvala by name, also yes. What was also engaged. And another thing, just I forgot to mention, because in one of the big activities was also in the 1980s, underwater research or rescue on Viljandi Lake of Viljandi, because and it was during the winter, and there was a pile of the rifles, very old-fashioned. It was all the stuff what was gathered from the people from 1905 revolution, and all the weapons were gathered and just put on the ice of the lake, and then they just fell down. And we had an expedition with a Triton, and also with guys from this Estonian History Museum, and they got a lot of rifles, but of course they are not in very good shape, and they had quite a big headache what to do with all these things, and it was in 1980s, and Maasilinna. It was one of the first expeditions where we got financial support. And we got financial support from Estonian Council of Ministries. And it was again individual connections. As I remember, it was around somewhere 25 or 26,000 rubles, and for those days it was a quite great sum of money, and it was to do the expedition and also to start with excavations and to take it up and to build a special house for conservation, and it was also important to have that kind of money. And of course, we knew how it was about all these examples, what Liisa told. We knew them quite well. But the question was that we were so poor to do it in the same way, like in Vaasa and Therefore, we had great guy with the chemistry, Jüri Pets, and archaeology also. He said that we can't do it in that way because it's too expensive, it takes so much time, and we must do something else. And in our cases, you must be innovative. If you don't have money, you must use your brains or just use something else if you don't have money. And we never had the money quite much. And therefore, we used polyethylene glycol in Maasilinna case, but to improve this conservation, we put also ethanol inside. And ethanol was a very tricky thing. It helped a lot, but the impregnation process was much more quicker, and we built also a house with a deep freezing equipment, but we got it from the Kirov, this fishing collective farm, and it was combined in many ways. And of course, finally, we had a lot of luck, and that's for it. We had several situations where all this Basilino wreck conservation process, it was possible that it all went well, but some destroying possibility was also, but we simply had a luck, and in many ways it's good. You must have a luck. Thanks.
Yeah. I just wanted to say I agree with Urmas, and when you read some protocols from gatherings from this era, there's always like a lot of hopelessness, and then some kind of hopeful event happened somehow because somebody knew someone, and then again hopelessness, and then again. So that's sort of a story of Estonian maritime archaeology at that time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, just one comment from me also, that I would actually even use the term age of diplomacy for some periods of underwater archaeological research, because Vello Mesh really was the guy that when you throw him out the door, he would climb in back from the window. He was so dedicated and really like a good captain, really could steer the course which he laid. So there is quite a lot of his enthusiasm that made all those things possible. But now, to continue with the topic, let's talk about Dive Club, Viikar, and the fieldwork campaigns. And Kaido, will you can take. Kaido Peremees is one of the guys who was present in the first fieldwork campaigns. He's a commercial diver, nowadays mostly busy with commercial works underwater, but still very much involved in underwater research. He actually quite recently got the prize from the National Heritage Board because of locating the airplane lost over Gulf of Finland in 1941. So.
Yeah. Okay. Let's try to start. Okay. Need to wait for. Okay. Couple of words myself. Kaido. I started diving in 1983, and my education is Tartu University History and Archaeology. And from 86, 87 to almost to the present day, I have been participating in Estonian Maritime Museum activities and also Club Viikar, Maasillana wreck excavation, search for a light ship, Hiiumaal, Yenisei, Myrtle, Najad and Rusalka, and so many others what we've done. And the latest was mentioned, the finding of those 2 airplane wreckage. When Priit asked me to share memories, I had a puzzle in my mind, because how to put your memories, which are generally like mixed up and lost. So I decided to go with the old photos, and you will see how they, if they're done on the right way, not these ones, but the following, they will let's say, shape some of your memories at the time and help you a lot. So let's go forward. The central part which I'm trying to talk or remember now is the Maasilinna shipwreck project and excavations. And for some you might not know, I will give you a quick backstory of the Maasilinna wreck. And it was found in Väike Väin, small strait in Saaremaa. Yeah, it was found in a small cove close to the ruins of Maasi or Soneborg castle. And further 1985, further investigation proved that this 16th century ship had been anchored at the medieval port and obviously sunk during the fire on board. So it's most likely tied to the Livonic Wars and all what happened around there. And we talked a little about the conservation and excavation project was launched actually in 86, 87, and all what followed Urmas just told you. So I think one of the main let's say the persons behind of going out and search for around Maasi castle, I believe was Bruno Pao, because he recognized the importance of the place at the time. And if you later times, if you think and look on the Olaus Magnus Charta Marina, that's one of the 3 places noted on the chart on 1539, which was printed in Venice. So it's, if you look on the map itself, it's totally skewed. Everything is upside down and messed around. But the importance that the name itself stayed, it gives the importance of the position. That's the better view of it. Because of the position of controlling the small strait or Väike Väin, and possibly facing the Muhu or Moon Island and controlling for, let's say, for today's terms, it's like a US military base controlling the local population. So, and the key point when it turned out, when the first excavations were made, that this wreck is truly special, was that the keel structure was a really unique. That's something they come to call as converted clinker, and there are several ideas behind it why it was done. Was it because of the ice condition? Was it because of some local reasons? Vello has in later years has suspected that this cradle, where you see the keel, has been detached from the hull, which is in maritime technology is quite unique. You need a strong keel, which is like a backbone for the ship itself, and yet you still make the cradle, lower the keel, and why is that? And one of the theories Vello's in later year has come forward was that it was used for transporting cattle, and with the cattle you need to manage the waste, the number 2. So it was collected into this cradle and shipped out. That's one of the stories. I don't know how it flies, but possibility. And here again, position where the ship was found. And here is a proud finder of the shipwreck in 1985. Vladimir Luite. The technique at that time, I believe in 85, was that they dived from the shore for the first times and made just a random dive around with the buoy behind you and just swim around in the cove. And he was lucky. What they first saw was just some piles sticking out from the mud, because it wasn't really clear at the beginning. Because the locals were saying that that's some remains of maybe some old port or whatever pilings. And when they did some little more research, it came out it's a shipwreck, and not just the ordinary fishing boat, but a bit older. And at the time in 86, the Maasi castle looked like this. Nothing excavated. If you go to that today, it's nicely excavated, clean. All the cellars are empty, because at the time when we were there on expeditions, the cellars were almost full to the ceiling, and they were used quite extensively by the expedition for storing food, because it's a cold place, and in the midst of the summer, the first thing that the younger members need to do, myself included, you get some butter or get some jam or food stuff, because it was ideal place, dark, cold, and scary. So when you looked from the top of the Maasi castle to the Mare, you saw the location on the sea where all this excavation was taking place. And that's how it looked. We saw today on some other photos from different angle, and that's how our expedition camped, and the famous buchanka, or how they call it, bread, loaf bread, looked like. So today they are famed in the Ukrainian war, where you see them being blown into pieces. And the thing how, at that time, how you research, you try to photograph some stuff. And in the 80s, there is not much to be, so everything, like every specialized kit must be done by yourself, which means also the underwater housings. And for example, this one was made from plexiglass, glued together, and it contained that camera at that time. And results were also comparable, not very sharp. And here is a Vello experimenting its own housing for a much better camera. And why I'm talking about these things, that in midst of the Viikar club was Ender Grensman. Urmas briefly talked about him, and he was a passionate photography enthusiast. He was somebody who thought about light, about composition, about rule of thirds, about diagonals in the things what you normally don't hear about. It's really inspiring, and if you think of him, it's like an unconscious teacher about how the photography or images is done. So here are examples from Endel's collection. I owe my thanks to Endel's family and sons, who gave me an opportunity to show these images with you. Just this Maasiline collection, or group of photos, involved around 300, which I needed to make a selection. So here are some really nice compositions, because between these excavations we had time also to visit, very often guided by Bruno Bao, visit local historical valued sites, and here his stories about the islands, and it was really amazing. But we'll come to that later on. And here are some images by Endel, and why he was so different, that he employed one very specific camera. So it's a medium format, and normal people you don't use it, so especially in Soviet times. And that was Kiev 88 or a Salute S, which for most of you, if you don't know, it's a rip-off copy of Hasselblad. If you don't know what is Hasselblad, the most renowned camera in the world, is that Hasselblad was used in moon landings here. So and there is a reason. The format itself gave the possibility to make great pictures and great resolution at the time. And what Hendel did during several years, he made, I don't know, that's the probably not only in the world, but one of the only kind made by his, on his laps, just by hands. And because if you think and if you look around at the same time, or even into the Western world, where you had housings for the Hasselblad type of cameras, they were quite simplistic. This one had a domed viewport, which gave a especially wide view. And you can immediately see he made and put a lot of thought into this camera. And here you can see how it disconnected. So one of the kind. And here are results. He was really lucky in 1986 when Viikar started to excavate or to open the first time the wreck itself to get a better understanding. And here we see this work done with the numbering, the frames, and documenting it. And which was also, as we talked before, the luck is very important, because as Endel itself, I recall, told us that guys have been were working there like week before. Poor visibility. He arrived with his top-notch camera, and water cleared. Excellent visibility for the small straits or the väike väin, because normally you have quite low visibility, but for that specific timing, it just went like crystal clear. And the results are here. So you will have like you could maybe get mixed to some, I don't know, Southern Ocean images or something similar. And how the work was done was by using water ejector pump and just a high pressure water. So the wreck was first opened, and later years was used to take the tunnels on the Vaasa, to take like 4 tunnels under it. No specific security or anything, but it was done. But I will give my comments later on that one. And all these nice images, they were made by Endel on that specific moment. Here you can see where one of the divers is working with a pump, and a lot of mud is picked up. And the result is there. You can see the cradle already opening inside the ship. Here is a diver. To be specific, it's Alexander Baumann. You can still recognize him very well with this high pressure water. So that's how it looked. And here's this cradle. Again, you can see opening. And what Endel also did, he used his camera quite a bit for making portraits of the members. Vello, you have seen in the many images. This one I liked. It made he found a good composition with this another photographer on behind, so it gave this moment a specific feeling for me. And here is Rein Albri and Alexander Baumann. Alexander was the man who was behind the designing this lifting raft and this pulley system. We finally lifted the wreck. Here you can see the diving equipment of the 80s. And Rein on the more normal clothes. It's a very nice, touchy moment. We were talking about making movies, and Rein was one of the main instigators or makers of movies. He even probably, if I remembering correctly, he won some prizes even with these films, what he made. And here you can see he's working with this movie camera, and this is at that time you need power from the battery from the ship, because the batteries at that time didn't run very long, and actually the main question was besides of housings and underwater photographic equipment was the light. How you get the right light, how you get light at all, because normal diving lights were like candles. So here is Alexander Baumann again. Endel picked his photo moments. So he was making photos almost constantly. So nobody even. Most of the people started to ignore them, and then it started to get, the images were the best ones, so they were natural, not posed. Aavo. Alexander and Aavo, as Vello said, I remember at that time, there were two main guys. Vello said, I need them, and when I need to get things done, I will need them. So Aavo was also on board on the Mare when in 1987 a storm struck and almost ended with the total disaster. The Mare started to drag the anchor and was rapidly closing to the shore. So Vello, Vari Heino, mechanic, and Aavo went aboard, and in the mess of the storm, the anchor wire got caught on the propeller, so Vello was sawing it into the storm, this wire, to get it untangled, and they managed maybe on the last moments, because as I understand that the keel was like maybe half a meter from the ground already, because dragging was so wild. They managed to salvage the vessel, and as Urmas told before, this workboat we saw before, it sank. It was salvaged later. Here is image background on the Maasiline background, Vello, Margus Tooming, and Endel Sõerde. Endel was, in Estonian terms, he was like Walter Cronkite, if you know. It was like, with his presence, he was like a pillar of stability. When Vello went, he was very passionate about things and sometimes he was capable of going, let's say, to the high wire. Then Endel was the guy who calmed the situation down and kept everything under control. And also had connections, as Urmas told you, to go further when everything seemed hopeless. here is Endel again on a nice moody image. So, and this is the raft again from another angle. If you look, you can see this chain hoist hanging over the ends of these wooden structures, and we needed to operate them simultaneously all to get the wreck lifted from the bottom. And here is also there are images from the Osmussaare slipaway when the wreck is already under this plastic cover. And Urmas here working for building for this hangar, let's say.
Hangar is very good.
Yes, I mean, I would like to call it hangar. These are the sketchy start of the hangar, let's say.
And also sketches were done by this historian Mati Õun.
And his sons, yes, yes. So, lot of people putting a lot of their efforts and thoughts behind things happening at the time where nothing was available. I was regarding this housing, I told you, if you think of the time that even the O-rings, as simple as rubber O-ring, impossible, but yet they managed to find them somewhere. And Bruno, in the center, we saw him before, and in my young mind at that time, I would consider if Gandalf the Grey would have been living in a Soviet Estonia, because his stories in front of the same bus. We were driving around Saaremaa, all these sites all interesting and historical, and also here he's showing here one of the old I don't know in English kuidas need lautrikohad on, port remains, slipway, not exactly, okay, we can call them slipway, ancient slipways, let's say, and theorizing about these possibilities of finding of Viking ships and all this as such. One thing just sticked out. 1987, when we had this stormy period and we couldn't work, we were making this round trip around Sõrve. Here we are visiting the remains of the Second World War Russian battery sites, coastal batteries, coastal guns, let's say. Yes, and here we are resting, all tired to the event. And when we were on the way back through the Salme, he said that Salme, the name itself, it's an ancient strait. I'm quite confident around these areas, the Viking ships can be found. And in 22 years, we have to. So it's that's why I'm talking about Gandalf. So, and great part of these young lives and memories, the evenings were met at the table, and here the Endel has captured the moment. Confusion, the light is dim, that's why everybody so all the minds are a little bit around you. You can see a lot of bottles, of course. And so this is kind of, that's how the magic of photography looks like. And also with the campfire, as Liisa very nicely put it before. So that's about Maasilinde and some stories behind it. Since we are here in Hiiumaa, I need to take a bow to the island, desolate island. Yeah. And when I went through all these old documents, I came back and found one of the VHS tapes from 1994, 4-3, when we had success of finding Liisa and Hiiumaal or Neckman ground wrecks, because these are where it all started, as you told us. So initially, when Museum, Vello, all the team started, they obviously started to search where Hiiumaal or the lightship was stationed originally, which is the shoal Hiiumaal. And local heritage, or they were asking around from the older people, nobody couldn't answer. And there was no clear understanding where the ship was. It was known that it was lost at the beginning of the war, but when exactly, where exactly, it was a mess, total mess. And thanks to the beginning of the changing times, Maritime Museum had a great help from Royal Institute of Technology, Bengt Grisel, and Stockholm, and cooperation, which came to visit in several expeditions and bought with him side scan sonar, a magic tool at the time. One of the first, this is the Altair's HTEC 272 side scan, where you still work on the paper. So it's like people sitting around and like waiting something to happen. And the result was that thanks to this side scanner, first the Liisa was found, and then Hiiumaal, not at the place where we were searching initially, but on Apollo model, because thanks to the memories of the surviving member of the Liisa, it revealed that on the morning of early morning on 23rd, not 22nd of June 1941, Liisa was passing Hiiumaal. He went from, was it Liepaja to Tallinn or Paldiski, and they saw that Hiiumaal was picking up his anchor. And by the time Liisa was making Apollo model or shoal, the Hiiumaal, which was much faster ship, caught up and went further to the east in front of them. And almost that time they were seeing from the south approaching small boats, which were German torpedo boats, and S-44 torpedoed the Hiiumaal, which sank instantly, just a puff of smoke and nothing on the surface. Torpedo meant for the Liisa. First one went by, misses, and then the steamer was stopped. Crew was taken off, and the ship was sunk by the second torpedo. And we were extremely lucky in '94, I believe, was the year when we first found Liisa, because of these side scan sonar possibilities, and also again the luck, what the visibility. I hope I can share with you this old tape. I picked a small recording, and that's black and white, but you can still see the visibility. I hope it starts playing around. And this was filmed by us with underwater communications. So the cameraman at that time was advanced stuff. The cameraman was holding the camera, and all the voice was recorded. And today it's, I would say, it's a valuable documentary. So you can see, and here you can see the result. 1/3 of the ship in the center of the wreck is missing. So the torpedo made a tremendous hole, and also with the following storms have been has blown this center part into the pieces. So basically you have like bow and stern section. And Hiiumaa and the surrounding area is known for a good visibility. Not all the time, but sometimes you can have it like 20, 30 meters, even more. And that's how Liisa looked like in 94, 93, when it was found. And after that, when Liisa was located, it was clear that we have like a reference point for Hiiumaa to be found. And Vello made very good estimation. So the next result was a discovering of the Hiiumaa itself, which I will show the glimpse of the, because it's blown into the pieces, you can still recognize the bow anchor, which is very specific. You will see it soon. And this is a special mushroom anchor, which is still on the wreck. Initially there were talks that we should recover that one also for a Hiiumaa museum, but I believe it's still there. And at the time we were investigating the possibilities of how it can be recovered. There are two. One is Andrus, underwater, and on the, upstairs it's Kaido, me. So both voiceovers were recorded, and today it's a nice memory. Totally, I didn't remember most of it. So when I found it, wow! And I was amazed that it's a decent image if you think of VHS and the possibilities at that time. Sorry. Yeah, it was. It's shallow water and very warm. It was unusual. I mean, yeah. I was actually amazed also when I saw this. The same image was what, barehanded? Okay, that was my same feeling. Okay, and here is the most important thing you will see: the bell, which is behind you. How it looked like, and most important, you will see the moment when the image Urmas showed you before was taken. You will see it on this video. It was deeply covered under stones and on the part of the side of the wreck. So we had, to be honest, it was washed a lot, and in the end, we still couldn't free it. And Vello said, "I'm not leaving without this bell," because and I mean, not only Vello, everybody felt like that, because it was something 20 or more years was searched for, and now we will leave it here. So I must admit what was done. Very strong rope under the wreck, fastened to the head of the bell, and the Altair made a good push. Pooh! remained intact. Amazing how it happened. I can't understand actually to this day. So let's see. And here you will see how the image was taken. Alexander Baumann with his underwater camera. Photo, flash. Here is the photo. So it was amazing that these things came together. And here you can see the moment that the ship was coming out from the sea. And everybody were like, you see the emotions. No need for that. Okay, that was all from my side. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. We already had some questions and comments. Maybe we have more, obviously.
Oh, okay.
I have a quick question. My great uncle, Johannes Valborg, perished on that ship.
Oh.
And I was wondering, is there anywhere you can see the footage of your archaeological excavation?
You mean the recording?
Yeah, the recording.
Not yet. It's in my hands. I will need to forward it to the Maritime Museum if they are interested. Yes.
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Just not very serious comment, but anyway, because Kaido's father was a very great mechanic and many years on board of Mare. And despite of this, that he was great mechanic and helped Mare many times to sail. And but there is when we were in, I guess it was in Suursaar or Suurtütarsaar, quite close to the island, and we just stayed overnight there, quite close to the island, and we went to sleep. And there was a lot of mosquitoes who just smelled. There was a ship full of people, fresh blood, and it was quite awful. We all ran on the deck, but Kaido's father, no. He was in a bunk, no emotions at all, and pile of mosquitoes just flying around him, but he slept very well. Just one still a memory about one guy who just was absolutely not touchable by the mosquitoes. Okay,
thank you.
Not very good comment,
yeah, but
anyway. Okay.
Interesting story. I never heard it.
Yeah, I noticed that you started diving before you started learning history.
Yeah.
Were those things connected somehow?
No, obviously, yeah. Obviously, we had a great influence from these events on Maasilina and all these great people who actually Endel made a very nice portraits about them. It's like a tribute to them. So they were all influencing us. So that's clear.
I can also add that he belonged to the children club, Pringele. He grew up with our underwater archaeology club and in the Maritime Museum. And we talked a lot about Tartu University and about history. So I remember.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Okay, and just there is one very important point also, because Endel Sõerde was a chairman of Viikar club, and he was as it was told, he was very representative, he was very well known. Everyone, he was a TV anchor, and that for it was, and to him was also fishing and underwater sport diving was also quite known. But it was necessary to have one well-known face on the front of this new club, and of course Endel was very good in this, and we were sometimes very temperament in arguing, and as Kaido already said, Endel was then who just calmed down and said very wisely some things, and but one of the main thing was it was very well known and very honored person in Estonian community in 1970s and 1980s.
Yeah. Correct. Yep.
Well, thank you again, Kaido. Thank you all for your questions and comments. And now, this is it for today with the presentations. You have now the opportunity to wander around the building and look around. Take your time. It will actually probably take the employees a couple of minutes to power everything on, because at the moment the facility is closed for visitors. So when you just happen to see a blank wall, then wait a little bit. It might be filled with the exhibition. And then we have dinner. Dinner is the place, Randmaa pub, is quite close. Here you have in your bags a map, so we don't need the bus, I hope. Maybe we need the bus to come back, I don't know. But yeah, it's quite close. They are waiting us at 6 o'clock. So please feel free to wander around, and then we will meet at the pub. And thank you very much.